Yes.
Do you think aligning yourself with Vladimir Putin is going to be good for South Africa?
But that's what it is now. South Africa is in alliance with Russia, with India, with Brazil, with China. So why are you asking me as if it's some policy that is going to be implemented
South Africa right
after
now,
I took over? South Africa is in alliance with Russia now.
South Africa right now calls itself non-aligned.
In the context of the war, but these are two different things. South Africa is an ally of Russia.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing good from wherever you're watching me from. And I came across a video, an interview by Stephen Saka, a BBC journalist. It was on Julius Malema a while ago. And I thought this is a very interesting video, and especially right now. This video is talking about the right for South Africa and especially, African countries or countries of Black people being able to have the freedom to choose their own friends. Let's watch this video, and at the end of this video, I will be back with a good analysis. So let's go for it.
Yes.
Do you think aligning yourself with Vladimir Putin is going to be good for South Africa?
But that's what it is now. South Africa is in alliance with Russia, with India, with Brazil, with China. So why are you asking me as if it's some policy that is going to be implemented
South Africa right
after
now,
I took over? South Africa is in alliance with Russia now.
South Africa right now calls itself non-aligned.
In the context of the war, but these are two different things. South Africa is an ally of Russia. Now, the second question is, where does South Africa stand on the war? It says I'm a non-aligned in relation to war, but Russia remains South Africa's friend. So we cannot create confusion around there. Don't create an impression that it is Malema who's going to come and create an alliance with Russia.
But there are some very specific...
Actually, I will
go
go beyond that. I will go beyond the friendship with Russia, and in the war, I will align with Russia, and I will even supply the weapons to Russia. Because Russia is in a war with imperialism, and any agenda that seeks to push back imperialist agendas, it's well within the policies of the EFF.
You say, quite clearly, I would arm Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
You know that the International Criminal Court wants Vladimir Putin to face war crimes charges.
It must start with Tony Blair. It must start with George Bush. It must go to Barack Obama. Then it can go to Putin.
So let's get this straight. You're saying to me that your policy, if you were in power in South Africa, is quite simple. That your enemy's enemy, and it seems you regard the US and its allies as the enemy,
Yes.
your enemy's enemy
Yes.
is your friend. Never mind if he's a suspected war criminal, never mind if the UN and the ICC say they have compelling evidence of Russian war crimes. You don't care. As far as you're concerned, my enemy's enemy is my friend.
You're exaggerating, but another point which you don't want me to go there is that Tony Blair accepted that they were wrong about Saddam Hussein to an extent that he did an apology of a thug, right? You have never called for his arrest. A man admitting that I was wrong. To how many people died?
Independent sovereign existence. He appears to believe that the best thing would be to revive an empire, the Soviet empire. But you're anti-imperialist?
We are anti-imperialist. That's a debate for another day. The war is not what he's talking. The war is about the expansion. And had there been a common ground found, this could have been avoided. We are not for imperialism, even if it were to come from Russia. If he does that, we'll condemn it. But we know for a fact that progressive forces such as China have also aligned themselves with Putin to try and create an alternative from the imperialist domination of the world. And that's what the EFF is about.
You admire China, you admire, it seems, Putin. What you seem to have as a vision for South Africa's future is much more along those lines, authoritarianism, than democracy?
No, socialism is not authoritarianism.
So how can you describe China as progressive?
No, it's very progressive. China subscribed to Leninism and Marxism, where the working class control the commanding heights of the economy. And that's what we subscribe for. We are of the means of production being owned and controlled by the states. We want South Africa through the vision and the image of China, where you grow the economy, where you reduce unemployment, where you reduce poverty, and you can't take that away from China. And the state plays the central role with regard to that.
That kind of message and the messaging on Russia has seen the rand plunge against the US dollar. Hang on. We see many corporations in South Africa looking at establishing headquarters elsewhere. We see foreign direct investment flatlining in this country. Do you believe that the rhetoric you are using is good for the South African economy?
I've been doing this from when you interviewed me 15 years ago, when I was young. And therefore, you can't say the rand to dollar crisis today is created by this message that I've been spreading for so many years, from my early ages. And then this
No,
party
but what I'm
has been
suggesting is that the new
party-
tensions between Washington and the government in South Africa have definitely affected the financial markets.
No, it was the crisis as we see it today, as we have this conversation, me and you. It was worsened by the irresponsible utterances by the ambassador of the USA, who just recklessly, without following the diplomatic protocols, went out to make certain allegations about our country, damaging its good image, and then undermining its sovereignty in terms of choosing who its friends are. And today we see the rand being weak because of such utterances. Why would the rand be weakened by a political posture that says this is what we want to be when we take over government? We want a government that will be owned by the corrupt free. I admire China when it comes to how it deals with crime. I admire China when it comes to how it deals with infrastructural development. I admire China on how it has dealt with poverty and unemployment. How would that weaken the rand? Is that not what the investors want for all of us?
The most likely way that you can get a grip on some power in this country is by forming a coalition with the ANC after the next election. You could have a role if you were to do a deal with the ANC. Are you ready to do it?
The reality is that the EFF is the only organization that is growing, and that the DA and the ANC, the DA, which is the official opposition, ANC, which is the ruling party, are both significantly declining to a point where the DA called us the enemy number one. Why did they do so? Their own internal research tells them that the EFF has overtaken you. That's how much our policy position has attracted the people of South Africa. We are not going into coalition for positions. We are going to say anyone who wants to work with us. And we've said this before, and that's why we're not working with anyone in the local governments. If you want to work with us, you are going to expropriate land without compensation. You are going to nationalize the mines. You are going to establish a state-owned bank. You are going to make sure that we fight crime, fire by fire, to make this country a safer place. Those are just but minimal, non-negotiable points that will engage with anyone who wants to work with us.
All of that,
non-negotiable.
non-negotiable. On that basis, it's hard to imagine you can make a coalition with anyone.
ANC was more than willing. Actually, ANC was at a point of signing with us on expropriation of land without compensation. Remember, we even put this in Parliament. How did it pass to a point where Parliament had to do an investigation if the ANC was not agreeing? We were almost at the edge of getting a deal. And some young ANC clowns decided to vote against this. But we're not going to retreat in returning the land back into the hands of our people.
Okay, welcome back. After watching this video, you can always say that Malema is one man that is very easy to love and also very easy to hate, because he will not sugarcoat the truth. He will put it as it is, whether it's desirable or the opposite. So, Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters of South Africa, has often been a critic, or has often spoken about South Africa's right to form alliances based on its own national interests, rather than being dictated by Western powers. So on this interview, it was a BBC interview, he emphasizes that South Africa should not be bullied into aligning exclusively with the West, while being discouraged from forming partnerships with other countries it finds beneficial, like China, Russia, and other countries in the global South, for instance. So, what is his stance? So his stance aligns really, I find these aligns with the broader Pan-Africanism and anti-imperialist agendas or views, where he argues that African nations must assert their sovereignty in global geopolitics, rather than being pressured into adopting Western or westernized policies um, in their political preferences. He has been particularly vocal on Western hypocrisy, on military interventions by the West, on economic policies that they impose on African countries of the Caribbean, so on and so forth. So, shall we get into this debate? So Julius Malema has consistently voiced strong opinions on Africa's right to determine its own allies or friends or partnerships. So in this interview, he pushed back against the notion that South Africa must align with the USA, with Europe, while avoiding partners that the West disapproves of, or that the West finds as being their enemies or non-allies. His argument reflects a broader struggle for African nations to assert their sovereignty in international relationships without being subjected to external pressure or economic blackmail, we can say. So Malema's key argument, sovereign decision making. Malema emphasized that South Africa should be free to choose its alliances based on the national interest of his country, rather than being dictated by Washington or the United States of America or UK or Europe. He pointed out that Western nations routinely form partnerships with whoever they see fit. Yet African countries, like his country, South Africa, and other African countries, follow a restricted playbook on who you can be friends with. And then he also highlights the double standards of the West. He highlighted the hypocrisy of Western nations, particularly the US and Europe, which maintains close ties with countries that do not always align with democratic values, but criticize African states for engaging with non-Western power allies like China, like Russia, for example. Then economic coercion and threats, where Malema puts it out that he warns against Western using economic threats or sanctions or diplomatic pressure to force South Africa into compliance with Western geopolitical strategies. Examples of Western pressures on black nations. So Malema's stance is not just rhetoric. It reflects real patterns of Western interference in Africa and the broader black world. Talk about the Caribbean, talk about South America. Some examples, we can say the France grip on Francophone countries in Africa. France has historically controlled the economies of its former African colonies through mechanisms like the CFA franc, that is the currency, which keeps these countries economically dependent on France. Even when nations like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, the alliance of Sahel states, recently expelled French troops and distanced themselves from from French influence. They faced Western diplomatic backlash and economic sanctions and, let's just say, economic consequences. So the US and the European sanctions on Zimbabwe in the southern of Africa. So Zimbabwe has faced heavy sanctions since around the early 2000s after implementing land reform policies that reclaimed land from white settlers. The West framed this as a response to human rights abuses, like they always do. They fabricate a story, but the economic restrictions crippled Zimbabwe's economy and served as a warning to maybe other African countries not to attempt to get back their freedom by returning back land from white settlers who came and stole land from the indigenous people. We can talk about in the Caribbeans, Haiti. So Haiti's constant Western interference. So Haiti, the first black republic to gain independence, that was in long 1804, has faced relentless Western interferences instead of calling them interventions. From France's demand for reparations in the 19th century to US occupation and economic exploitation, Haiti has been kept in a cycle of a dependency. Most recently, Western-backed interventions in Haiti's politics that has stifled the country's ability to govern itself independently. So African nations are facing pressure over BRICS membership. So you remember BRICS, the new alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So many African countries, including South Africa herself, are engaging with this new alliance as an alternative economic and political alliance. However, guess who is not happy? Your guess is right. US and Europe, particularly the US, having expressed concerns and even issued veiled threats about African states engaging too deeply with China and Russia. South Africa in particular faced pressure regarding its stance on Russia's role in BRICS and the war between Russia and Ukraine. And then we have Western military presence in Africa. I have always been a critic of this. So the US and France maintain military bases. In fact, the US, France, and the UK have military bases across Africa. In my country, Kenya, for example, we have the Batuk, which is a British Army training unit in Kenya that has been there for years. And you don't particularly know what is their business in the region, if not an extension of colonialism or remotely controlling my country, because we are a sovereign state. We are a country that has its own strong independent army, and if we need help, we can always call on you to come and help me. But you having a permanent military base on my soil begs the question, would you really approve of me having my boots on permanently in the UK, somewhere in the UK, in the name of alliance or helping to stabilize regional, the jargon that they put right there. When African nations like Mali and Niger sought to reduce military foreign military influence, they faced a backlash, economic consequences, and some cases even covert destabilization efforts. So Malema's argument in this interview fits into a broader historical and geopolitical context. The West has long dictated terms to Africa and black nations using economic power, military interventions, and diplomatic pressure to maintain control on black nations. So his push for African self-determination aligns with the growing movement among African and Caribbean nations to break free from neocolonial influence and form alliances that actually prioritize their own interest. As South Africa and other African countries navigate their global partnerships, the challenge remains this. Can they truly act independently without facing Western retaliation? So Malema's stance suggests that the fight for real sovereignty is ongoing, and Africa and all countries of black people must resist external pressure to secure its rightful place when it comes to global political affairs. I don't know what you think about this interesting topic or interview. Please do share your thoughts, your opinion in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up, like this video, and in case you just came across this channel for the first time, please subscribe to this channel. Check out our other videos in the channel for more on what we do in the channel. So until next time, I will be happy to see you in the next video. Peace out.